Do you want to get better at selecting cybersecurity controls for your organization? You'll need a plan. And this video, right now, we're going to go through some visuals, and then we're going to close this window after we've gone through the visuals, and then we're going to actually build out a control, assign it to a team, and start working on our project. You're welcome to follow along. This can be an interactive experience, and if you'd like a copy of the community version of this tool, let me know in the comments. So, what do we want to do? We want to deter malicious cyber actors, right? That's ultimately all of our goals, and we want them to abandon their efforts. But some people are real persistent, so we need to be able to protect the data that we have and prevent their attack from being successful. Then we need to be able to detect if they were able to bypass our protections, and we're going to have to set up proactive, detective, and responsive actions and controls. And that's what we're going to get into next. That will let us adapt to an ever-changing environment. You're going to learn how to write a better scope for your projects. You're going to have a better understanding of information and cybersecurity and how to build a system with components and mechanisms. A brief aside, we're going to talk about systems of systems analysis because it's important as we go into selecting controls and why we are going to select them. So what's important is that designs come from ideas and averages, right? We have an idea in our head, we have averages of things that go on that lets us start what we're doing. And that moves us through the design space to the actual system. And from the actual system, right, what will be impacted are variances of change in time. And that's going to impact the operational part of the system. And the operator works in a different space than what the designer considered. The operator is impacted by the operations, the procedures, the training, and the experience improvements and metrics that the organization wants, which lets them be in their reality and deal with the consequences that may not have been considered inside the design model. So we're going to go ahead and close this, and now we're going to get to selecting a control. What do we have here? This is a makeup of the NIST 853 framework. You're welcome to go and search that from the internet. This is the 853 framework, but it's operational. So we're using this in a Kanban form. We can also look at it with cards. Uh, and we also have a table if you want to see all of the controls in their control groups. Now, some great features here. We can search and we could say, I just want to know about remote access. Now, anywhere that remote shows up in all of these columns, we're going to get a finding. So we have access control, remote access, session termination, system component inventory, and those are places that remote has shown up. Now, some other things that we can consider, right, to improve our searching methodology and reduce our time, we can filter. So if we know where a column is, let's say we only want to know the status is validated, we could just pull up validated controls and speak to those components. Additionally, we could, open them up. We could have a description. We have the discussion question. We can change that filter, and we can filter by something else. Maybe we want to filter by priority, our last updated, when was the last updated, and who was it by. We could also determine our implementation. When our implementation contains a certain value, our project timeline is today, yesterday, a milestone, future, past, right? What's in the future? We don't have anything yet. We're going to make that today. But where our project timeline is, what our maintenance plan is, right? Where our maintenance plan contains a specific thing. We can look at the impact to the system process. So where the impact is low, where the impact is moderate, where the impact is high. So that lets us look at a control. So we're going to come over here to the cards, right? We can do the same thing here. We can filter, and we are going to be able to filter by group. So if you said, I just want to talk about creating least privilege, I want to create information flow, access enforcement, account management, we can show all of these high-level groupings to simplify what we're going to talk about in the scope of our work. So what are we going to do next? Let's just pick incident response or disaster recovery. Both of these are useful and imperative to do. So we're just going to go to this table first, and we're going to come here and we're going to say incident response. So we see session termination, training and awareness, audit and record review, contingency plan. We see it in these big control names, incident response. we are going to pick one control and start working on incident response. We have so many options, but let's get started with the policy and procedure and write a really good scope. So we're just going to go ahead and select this one item. If I was doing a whole group of work, if we were going to build out all of our incident response plans, I would come here and I could select them all, but we're not doing that today. We're staying inside the scope. So we have some descriptions, right? We want to address the purposes, scopes, roles, responsibilities, and we also have the discussion, right? These discussions can be put in your meetings so you have an idea about what you're going to converse about in the conversation, and you have to consider a couple things. We have some secondary controls here. Let's go ahead and make this, and then we're going to come here, we're going to go ahead and set this to selected. Let's go work in this in a card form, right? Incident response. And we see here policies and procedures. There's our control. It has been selected. If I was having trouble, I could filter and I could sort this by the person who was searching for it. I could search it by a variety of components. But we're just going to start here. Our policies and procedures. We have our description. We have our discussion question. We see that these controls need to be considered. And if I had a file to share to design, I could share it here. So we're going to move on from that. And we're going to set this as a priority. We're just going to set this as a low priority. And we're going to check this box. This helps us manage our project when we export this to Excel. We can then have a column with a tick. We also have our last updated. Now, what are the requirements? Well, they're right here. The description helps us define the requirements for what we're going to build. So we're going to build this out. And then we're going to come down here. And then we're going to estimate the hours. You know what? Let's just say we need to do 3 hours. This is good. It lets us start to plan, and then we're going to start to design. But we'll need another conversation with different people to start to really design this. But let's, develop our outline, and we're going to write it in Markdown. Really important here. Then we're going to talk about implementation. How do we implement the policies and procedures, and how do we make sure that everybody accesses them in our organization that needs to know? So ensure access across org, and then we're going to define our project timeline. So we're going to work on that for the next 2 days. It's going to be 3 hours, hour and a half each day. We've done that. We would define the maintenance, update based on risk assessment. Okay, so that's going to be our maintenance. We're going to do a review next year, right? We're going to do a review in 2024. Let's just go ahead and put that on May 1st. We've got a unique item ID, so we can export this and pull it up somewhere else. And then we can start to say, are there exceptions? Now, this is a policy and a procedure. We should not have exceptions. So we're just going to say there's no exceptions, and we're not going to have a duration. Everybody's got to follow this. And then we can say what's the impact to the process, right? It doesn't really apply for this control, and we don't really need to do any of these other components to engineer our detection model. But we could come here and generate a report, and we can assign a team to be responsible. So the team we want to be responsible is going to be our knowledge manager. Now, if we didn't know if this would be a good fit, we could open this up, and we could see the knowledge manager is part of operate and maintain. This is their work role description. We see that they're not working on any particular systems right now. There's no people, there's no on call. And we have this button if we wanted to send them an alert. And we also see that they're going to be working on this identify primary cloud security provider. That's on our cloud assessment tool. And then we see that this group is consulted for this control. They're informed about these controls. And they also take a component in risk management. So we've all of a sudden gained a lot more contextual knowledge about our knowledge manager, what they're responsible for, and what they're consulted on and informed about. So we're going to come back to this, and we're going to enjoy that our last update has already happened. And then we're going to scroll down. I don't know why we're not scrolling down. All right. Having some technical troubles, but that's how we would build our policy and control. And then we would upload our file for review. And that moves us to continuous improvement and continuous deployment. for developing and improving our information security programs. What do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments. Thanks.